Hello there. Today we're going to look at 10 ways to turn everyday English into business English. Let's get started. Number 1. Do not use slang. Slang is informal language. It's very common in everyday speech, but it's inappropriate for business communication. Here are some examples of slang words and what you could say instead. I totally agree. I completely agree. That's awesome. That's fantastic. Or, that's great news. I figured it out. I solved the problem, or I found the answer. Gonna rain cats and dogs. It's going to rain heavily. I'm super busy right now. I'm very busy right now, or I'm extremely busy right now. Chill out. Relax or calm down. I'm swamped with work. I have too much work to do. Let's catch up later. Let's talk later. It's gonna be a piece of cake. It will be easy. He's a real pain in the neck. He's very annoying. Number 2, avoid contractions. A contraction is a shortened form of two words. For example, don't is a contraction of do not. Won't is a contraction of will not. In business, it's better to use the full words. It makes your writing easier to read and understand. For example, we won't be able to fix that today. Instead of, we won't be able to fix that today. Number 3, don't use incomplete sentences. In everyday life, we often use incomplete sentences. We do this to make our speech faster and more casual, but in business communication, it's important to use complete sentences. This shows that you are clear and professional. Here are some examples of incomplete sentences and how to correct them. Want some coffee? Would you like some coffee? Going to the meeting tomorrow. Are you going to the meeting tomorrow? Think he'll be there. Do you think he will be there? See you later. Nice meeting you. Or, it was nice meeting you. Number 4, be careful with the first person plural. The first person plural includes I and we. For example, I think or we think. When you speak about yourself, you should be careful with this language. If you're giving an opinion, don't use I think or we think. You should use I believe or I feel. For example, I think this is a good idea. I believe this is a good idea. If you're talking about a fact, don't say we are, because it includes the other person. You should say I am. For example, we are responsible for this. I am responsible for this. Number 5, use the passive voice. The passive voice is when the object of a sentence becomes the subject, and the action is performed on that object. For example, someone broke the window. In this sentence, the subject is someone. The verb is broke, and the object is the window. Now, let's change the sentence. The action is performed on the object, and the object becomes the subject. The window was broken. In this sentence, the subject is the window. The verb is was broken, and the original subject, someone, is now part of the verb phrase. We use the passive voice to emphasize the object or to hide who did the action. For example, mistakes were made instead of I made mistakes. By using the passive voice, you can sound more professional. But remember, it's best to use the active voice most of the time. The active voice is clearer and more concise. Number 6, avoid idioms. An idiom is a phrase that has a special meaning. For example, raining cats and dogs, which means raining heavily. Most idioms are appropriate for everyday speech. However, they may confuse people if you use them in business communication. This is because most idioms are not used in business. And if your audience doesn't know the meaning of an idiom, it will only confuse them. So it's best to avoid idioms when speaking about business. Number 7, avoid humor. Humor is very subjective. What one person finds funny, another person may find offensive or simply not funny at all. If you want to make your presentation or written communication more effective, it's best to avoid humor. There are many different types of humor, such as puns, jokes, sarcasm, and irony. A pun is when you use the different meanings of a word to create a humorous effect. For example, why don't scientists trust atoms? Because they make up everything. A joke is a humorous story with a funny punchline. Sarcasm is when you say the opposite of what you mean to make a humorous effect. For example, "Oh, wonderful," said the man as his wife handed him a large pile of dishes to wash. Irony is when there is a contrast between what is said and what is meant, or what is expected to happen and what actually happens. For example, "Isn't it ironic," said the man as he stepped off the plane and into the heavy snow. All of these types of humor can cause problems in business communication, so it's best to avoid them. Number 8. Avoid personal pronouns. Personal pronouns are words like I, me, my, mine, we, us, our, ours. These pronouns are appropriate for everyday speech, but they may cause problems in business communication. For example, saying, "I did this project," sounds better than saying, "We did this project." Even if you did the project with someone else, it's still best to use the singular pronoun. You can use we if you want to include the other person. For example, John and I completed the project, or John and me completed the project. Number 9. Don't oversimplify. Oversimplifying something means to make it too simple. We often do this when we speak, but it can cause problems in business communication. For example, when explaining a complex idea, it's best to be precise with your words. Don't try to make things sound simpler than they are. Also, don't use simple sentences. Make sure you use the appropriate vocabulary and grammar rules. Using simple sentences may show that you don't have a good understanding of the language. For example, instead of saying, "Me go to school," say, "I went to school." Instead of, "They want come," say, "They won't come." Instead of, "She have 2 books," say, "She has 2 books." Number 10. Use polite expressions. Being polite is important in everyday life, but it's even more important in business. Use polite expressions when you're asking for something, making a request, or talking to someone who has a higher position than you. Here are some examples of impolite expressions and what you could use instead. Can you do this for me? Could you please do this for me? Do you mind closing the window? Would you mind closing the window? You need to finish this by Friday. You have to finish this by Friday. Or, you need to finish this by Friday. Now I want to ask you a question. Which of these tips will you use in your everyday life? Please let me know in the comments below. And if you like this video, please hit the like button. See you next time.